call you, vet you, put your notes in an ATS, and then submit your information to a client, right? That's not our game. We're going to basically put you through these series of levels or these micro experiences, and it's going to show us objectively what you could do, what your potential is, by job category and subcategory.
Is there an assessment test that you guys have that's available to students?
We do have an assessment that anybody could take at any point. They get a PDF immediately and it's free. There's no charge.
Such a great thing for kids because half your life is spent discovering what you love and then how to make money at it, right? And those two things most of the time don't connect with each other.
Employers and hiring managers, we get it. This has been going on for a century. But if you're truly looking for the right person that's going to be the highest job performer, you got to think differently.
Welcome to another episode of Humans of Staffing. My name is Sammy Singh, along with my co-host TJ Sammy. We're both the co-founders of WorkNow, and today our guest is our dear friend Gary Benedik. He is the CRO of Avenica. Gary, welcome to the show. This has been a long time coming. We've all been friends for a long time. We've chatted a million times, and finally we get to record this as an official, chat, so to speak.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The suspense has been killing me, Sammy. And good to see you, TJ. Welcome, Gary.
So, Gary, first question, which I believe not only in our mind is going to be on everyone's mind. You got acquired by Avenica. How's that journey been? That's to me the first thing. And then we'll go back into your history because it's really inspiring, and anybody who knows you're a genuine guy. You get what you get, and simple as that. So whatever you're going to tell us, it's going to help each and every one of us from a genuine point of view. So Tell us how the journey with Avenica has been and how that came about, and then we'll work ourselves backwards.
So, the journey started not by desire or planning. The journey started based on an action, and that action was my job was eliminated at my current employer. My job was eliminated at my current employer with little to no notice. And what I mean by that is within a couple hours, there was an announcement, and then my computer was shut off, and that was it. So there was no grand plan to be an entrepreneur or own my own business or build my own business or sell my own business. It was a reaction to an event that took place that was not planned for at that time. So when my role was eliminated and the company I was working for was pretty abruptly acquired, it was June 10th, 2020. We were all dealing with this thing called COVID. I lived in a 1,200 square foot apartment in the city of Chicago with my wife and son. My son at the time was 1.5. And obviously, once I kind of went through that experience that day and got through the levels of emotion of what the heck? I'm scared. I'm pissed. What do I do next? Got to provide for my family. I kind of just went into grind mode. And what I did is I took a step back, talked to some of my mentors. Probably one of those mentors at the time, Sammy, was you. And what do I do? And what I focused on was leveraging some of my assets that I've been building over the last almost couple decades. And that was my network. So I reached out to my network and I started to ask questions and learn and see where there might be some gaps or some ways I can help other companies, not with a desire to make a bunch of money, but for a desire to learn and start building my own kind of intranet of knowledge so that I could start helping other companies and then therefore maybe start building a consulting business. I'd say the first few weeks were just like recovery mentally and emotionally and making sure my wife and family knew that, don't worry, I got our back. I'm not in this alone. There's, dozens of layoffs a day with COVID hitting the floor. So from there, it was just, incorporating an organization named Arch Advisory Group. My son's name is Archer, so it was a very easy name to come up with. It was available on the Illinois Secretary of State website, so it was easy to grab. And from there, I just went back to my roots, and it was, I've been in staffing at that point in time for 15 years, almost 16 years, right? Whether it was corporate, agency, full desk, executive, down to entry level. I started networking with some of the folks that I've really relied on and said like, hey, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I think I'm good at. Do you know anywhere that might be looking for somebody that could talk to me, or we can just bang some ideas off of each other? And it could be for an hour, it could be for a week, it could be for a month, or it could be for a full-time job. But obviously, as we know, when I was impacted, I had a senior director level title, and those positions were far and few beyond, unless you wanted to relocate, right? So at the time, I just wanted to keep the lights on personally at the house with the family, make a little bit of income until the world normalized where I can get back into a full-time corporate role. That never happened. I started to build a business. I started to surround myself with people that I could trust. And I was able to kind of just like compound that kind of go-to-market plan around helping people build or buy, or a hybrid of such, around how you find and map talent through more of an objective lens, right? And whether that's through a marketplace concept or single searches, there was an appetite out there for companies that kind of get through the chaos that was happening because of chaos, but still able to identify the right talent for the roles they were filling. So I'd say the first several months of that journey when I was an entrepreneur, it was consulting. It was just like, spending some time with cool companies that were growing, and they just had questions around like, what do we do if we needed to build something? What do we do if we need to buy something? Can you help us scale? Can you be our first salesperson? Truthfully, at that time, I was not saying no to a lot of work. And then what I did is I started to learn that as the world kind of did normalize a bit, the direct hire search business was starting to pick back up, where there was a lot of demand out there. Now, I've worked for a few different staffing firms, and previously, the company that I worked for, we managed 3,500 staffing firm relationships in a marketplace concept. I decided to go back into kind of a transactional-based direct hire search business, but under really 3 core values, and that was authenticity, speed, and transparency. And why I picked those 3 is because I wanted to be nothing like the firms I worked for or ones that I worked with, because obviously there's a subjective perception on what staffing looks like, right? Especially back then in 2020. So with that being said, I started to kind of pivot and focus a lot more on direct hire and search, and anchor myself to organizations that were hiring, that were available and had budget for an external headhunter. And that's kind of how my business took off. I'd say probably the beginning of 2023, I reconnected with Scott Detman, who was the CEO of Avenica. I worked with him at Manpower Group. He's a brilliant dude, PhD data scientist, kind of looks at our industry at a different lens, can really remove emotion, and is really focused on modeling programs for organizations. And I actually reached out to them because I had a client that was hiring some entry-level talent that my team didn't really want to work on. Smaller fees, multi-incumbent, same skill set, scattered across the country. And I didn't have the bandwidth nor the reach to support regions really outside of the Chicagoland area when it came to direct hire. We were doing some rev share, and one day he was just like, hey man, would you be interested in entering a conversation of us acquiring Arch? And that was it. I was like, well, shit, I'll enter it. I'll entertain it. The odds of it happening is probably slim to none, but sure, this is a good experience for me. After 4 or 5 weeks of diligence and referencing and talking to their customers, and obviously seeing how they work because we were a rev share partner, I decided to go all in. And I can tell you exactly why the Avenica model has really impacted my ability to make that decision. But to answer your question in a long-winded response, Sammy, I didn't plan to build Arch Advisory Group. I didn't plan to build and sell Arch Advisory Group. My plan was still that W-2 track in the startup, AI-driven marketplace world. And what I thought at that time, the world was crashing down on me on June 10th, 2020 was actually probably the best thing that happened to me in my career.
That is so crucial, Gary, because the best comes out when the toughest things come to everybody, right? It's if you grow with money, you don't appreciate it. Folks who have done. Talk a little bit about where you grew up, because you're from Chicago, and we've hung out together in Chicago many times. and you showed me flavors of Chicago, and you love the place, and you give even the reality of Chicago the way it is. We'll come back to the Avenica thing because I think it's crucial to know where the world's going, what's happening, where we are. But talk a little bit about your growing up, just because that kind of tells everybody that how you react in a bad spot determines usually where your success happens, because no one has a journey that says, oh, he made this much money and he did this out of nowhere. There's enough downs and there's maybe one upside once in a while. And that's usually where the journey is.
I mean, you're right. Yeah, there needs to be like an event that happens that triggers a response. And if those specific events don't happen, you don't know what your potential is, right?
And what you're up against. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I'm born, raised, and live in Chicago, actually within probably a 30-mile radius of where I'm sitting right now, guys. Grew up by Midway Airport, southwest suburbs, and it was a blue collar, environment. And there was never, egos. It was just like you take public transportation to grammar school and high school. It was just part of life, right? So, and I'm obviously biased, but growing up where I did, you did build some really strong relationships. Some of my best friends I've known for 35 years. Like we grew up together. We might have went to different colleges. A lot of folks didn't go to college where I grew up in, but we kind of came back and we're still the same friends and our kids are friends. And it's such a heartwarming story where like you hear about it, but like where we grew up, there was just such a dependency on each other because we were kind of growing up in an era, right? And where we were always together, not necessarily we were kind of the latchkey kids, right? So you get out of school, you don't see your parents until 3 or 4 hours later, right? So it's like you kind of had to learn quickly on how to not necessarily survive, but manage your life, right? So I feel like that was a good foundation of how I was able to react in the kind of the fight or fight mode on June 10th of 2020. But truthfully, guys, I try to take a glass half full approach to anything that comes at us, right? Because my motto is there's really two things that I really care about. It's time. Time can heal the good and bad. Time can allow you to prep. Time can just thinking about time where I'm at now versus what it was going on June 10th of 2020. And then your network, right? I think this is just a key principle that I try to instill in my team is like, if you provide a good experience to everybody or try to, friend, family member, colleague, coworker, customer, candidate that you dislike, there's a better opportunity that they're going to come back around. And if you're memorable in a very authentic way, you probably will be able to reach back out to them in a vulnerable moment. And that's what I was able to do. And I learned this really early on. My first job was a headhunter out of college, 100% commission. Even if I wasn't making placements every day, I just learned that if I treated people right and I was responsive and I was authentic, I could rely on them in the future. But so to answer your question, Sammy, that when I thought the world was crashing down on me, it wasn't nothing. I was scared, but I knew I didn't kill anybody. I'm not going to jail. I'm not a felon, right? Like I'm not wanted. Like I gotta pivot my focus and grind and just make it work. And that's what I did.
No, just looking at the timing of it, Gary, it seems like the timing was perfect, even though the event was pretty drastic for you. Because here you are looking at your background, you're a hands-on guy who's probably grinded in the past, not afraid to work hard, right? And then you've got COVID, which in return meant that there was, at least what we were experiencing at that time, so much demand for talent because you couldn't find enough talent. So here you are, this event happens, you get triggered, you've got a background of hard work, doing the grind. Then you've got a market that's fighting for talent, right? Just trying to get talent. And then you've got a network that you've established over the years with those principles. I think it's probably a perfect storm that happened to you now that you're back that allowed you to then grow and kind of stick the focus on where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate. You hit it on the head, TJ. It's like, yeah, there was kind of this war on talent, but remember there all this hoopla around essential jobs, right? So like some job categories just flatlined. right? Whereas other job categories just exploded, right? So like I just, like most people saw that. And as a supporter of the staffing industry at that time, while I might have traditionally done full-time direct hire in the financial services space, since that flatlined, I just pivoted my focus and said like, okay, what job categories are essential? Where is the focus now? I might have to make 10x more placements because the margins are lower, but that just means I'm gonna have to work harder, right? So I was fluid. I wasn't stuck in a certain category or vertical. I was more focused on building rapport with influencers of organizations versus like going really deep in a certain job category or vertical.
And this really, Gary, brings me to the point that all of that occurred. You also worked on Unghosted. There was a concept in it. I met you 100%. This is the 100% truth. I met you looking at some position we had. That's how we met. We spoke briefly, and I knew you were genuine. Wasn't a fit or affordability at that point, but yet you did help in some of the products, and you did consulting at that point with us as well, and you gave it all the way I remember it, right? Which means the most powerful thing you had going for you at that point, yes, your experience, your all that, was your network. Everybody in your network, I don't care who it is, that you've ever referred me to has only spoken highly of you, consider you to be authentic, consider you to be a stand-up guy that you can trust to do something. You've done enough for everyone around you. And guess what? That entire network, somebody has to learn a lesson. If they're dealing with day to day, and every call they make, they're trying to make some darn money out of it. It's got to be in their benefit. It's got to be this is going to have a short-term kick. Even the folks who may not agree with you, you were very kind to everybody. And I've flexed your network many, many times. Many times. Every time I've called you, how do you end your call usually, Gary? Could you repeat that? You did it just the other day. How do you end every phone call that you typically have with everybody?
Is there anything I can help you with?
Yes. Always. And I spoke that to TJ about this last week. I said, I ended a call with Gary right now. And the last thing Gary told me is, Sammy, how can I help you in which way? How can I be of help to you? That, I wish everybody followed that principle. And in general, we'd all be better off.
Yeah.
That's just life in general. Because you've obviously, and to see you succeed and do better, only blessings are going to come your way. Because everybody goes, yep, Gary did well. Awesome. He deserved it. That's the difference.
Well, you sure know how to make a grown-ass man blush, Sammy. That's for sure. But, well, thank you for that. It really means a lot. And I don't want this to come off as like contradictory to what you just mentioned around wanting something in return. I'm fulfilled by doing that, right? So it makes me feel good by doing that for other people and folks like yourself, right? So like, if I truly in my DNA did not like helping other people, I wouldn't be doing it, right? Just like I don't like cutting my grass. I don't cut my grass. I don't like doing it. Like I actually like networking. I like connecting people. I just fell in the right business out of college, right? I went to my undergrads in engineering technology, right? Like if I was an engineer, I wouldn't be able to build and take advantage of such said network, right? I just happened to fall in recruiting, which supported intrinsically who I am, in my opinion, right? So like, I don't look for anything in return, but what I do get out of it is self-gratification, right? So it's almost like a kind of a drug that keeps me going, is always connecting people and trying to solve problems within my network. It just makes me feel good.
Go ahead, TJ. You go first.
No, you know me, right? I'm going to ask more about AI and Procreate and stuff. Oh, so what I'm going to switch gears on, Gary, is now you've been at this for over 2 decades, right? And walk us through the journey where you heard about AI for the first time and it was just a buzzword, or maybe you were already using it and you didn't realize you were using it. And then, whether that's 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, and now it's such an integral part of your daily life, right? So walk us through where you heard it from, how impactful has that AI journey been for you, and how much are you using it today within your business?
Yep. I'd say so. I could tell you exactly when I started to become curious was in 2013 when I was running talent acquisition for a company called Sears Holdings Corporation. So we hired tens of thousands of people a year and touched well over 1 million candidates every single year. Use an applicant tracking system called Brass Ring that was a Connexa product back in the day. And it was very it's just like it's just like if you can automate tasks, you probably would be in a better position as a recruiting function. Not necessarily, it's different from automation is obviously different than intelligence, right? So I was aware of it, but then I was kind of over the corporate structure, and I actually wanted to get into the startup world, specifically around technology and AI and all these buzzwords that were coming around. And in about 2013, specifically in Chicago, the gig economy was exploding. Where we had a lawyer, you could be an accountant, and you want to do a gig on a weekend. You wanted to be a bartender on a Thursday. All of that was starting to become a reality, and that was super interesting to me. So what I did is I moved to the city of Chicago. I connected with some startups. One of them, which was just a great experience for me, ShiftGig. ShiftGig is one of the pioneers in putting people to gigs on demand in a matter of seconds. Right now, it wasn't necessarily AI and machine learning, but it was kind of the manipulation of a tool or a system of record and fields and parsing and data. And so that's when I was really oh shit, you can really do some damage, and you can map people to gigs through different fields that are attached to a contact record or a company record, right? So that was where I first was this is a real deal. This is better than a Google Sheets and smiling and dialing to get a lawyer to do a bartender on a Thursday, right? So that's when I first learned about it. And then I spent a couple of years at Manpower Group. At the time, Manpower Group wasn't heavily interested in AI, nor was it, in the field when I ran a division of Manpower Group called Experis. But then I was recruited to go to this company called Scout Exchange, which was just a powerhouse when it comes to AI and machine learning. And what it did is we connected 500 something employers to about 3,500 staffing and recruiting firms through our homegrown native products. And we would just fill jobs. So at one time, there's 3,000 or 4,000 jobs in this marketplace. And we were intelligently matching those jobs to the right staffing and recruiting firms based on a variety of inputs and legacy data. And then the machine would continue to get smarter, and that would also help manage the rec load on the employer side. So that was my first full-time role, and my job there was to manage the marketplace. So essentially managing the supply and demand and working with the data scientists and the marketing teams, and I had teams managing our supplier network. That's where I was really the kind of the dangerous fun ability of machine learning to learn behaviors and certain attributes that would deliver results in a marketplace. Ultimately, that's the company that was abruptly acquired in June of 2020. But I had a plethora of experience there for 4 years, building a marketplace from 900 staffing firms to 3,500 staffing firms over a course of 4 years.
How heavily are you using AI part of your internal business now? Is that part of your decision when you do hire new recruiters internally? How are you managing that aspect today?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say we're if you had to grade us, Avenica, on how much we use AI now, I'd say we're probably a C+. We have so much opportunity. We have so much data. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming on where to start plugging in AI. But I think what we're striving for is, and if I can kind of articulate a little bit about the Avenica model to help define how we're using AI in our specific model is, so Avenica is a company that was built 15 years ago. It was stemmed off of an entity called GradStaff, which is a service-based recruiting firm that placed entry-level college grads to companies. And it was based off of a bunch of interviews and call sheets and record information in a database. In 2019, they went out and hired Scott Deckman from Manpower Crew. He was the head of digital transformation at Manpower Crew, pulled him over, and they said, we need you to fix this dying business. We need you. We have millions and millions and millions of rows of data. We have thousands of placements. We understand who went where, who's still there, who got promoted. So what he did is he kind of like, he went through all that information and reverse engineered and built an assessment so that you could start predicting who would be a good fit for a job, who will stay there, and who will get promoted. This is aside from resume. This is aside from how good of an interviewer you are. You kind of remove all that emotion and that subjectivity around the interview process, and you just focus on assessing people and mapping them to the jobs based on attributes. It is obviously we have since scaled, and that's what we do now. We have a subscription model where we have companies that come to us and they have access to a client portal. We assess the talent. We put them through some levels or micro experiences, and we really pull out their potential, regardless of education, where you went to college, internships, and or even what that candidate thinks they're good at, or what that candidate is passionate about, right? So we are grabbing a couple hundred people a day into our database, and we're putting them through our levels. And at the end, we are educating these candidates on, hey, even though your undergrad is in engineering, you would be a great recruiter. Here's why. Here's the data to support, and here's your income potential. Oh, and by the way, every year and a half, you should kind of add this +1 skill to keep your career going on the right trajectory. We built a foundation of AI to help accelerate that learning, right? By job category, by persona. We have two different types of personas. And TJ, where the magic happens is when we start to absorb the performance data of the people that we're mapping the jobs, right? So if you think about we're mapping, we're placing all these folks to jobs. Then when we start to see the performance data, the machine will start to learn, and we might have to adjust some of the levels so that we can consistently provide them with higher performers. And so what we do is we kind of inject AI at the bottom throughout that process in different stages, especially when that data, that performance data comes back to us, what we kind of call this data loop. And then we can really start to analyze like why, where, is the hiring manager an influence? Is the seasonality an influence? Right. So we have a bunch of projects in our AI tools that are learning about each company, aka customer, each job title, each part of the world. And as we start to map talent and suck in the performance data, that loop is really driven off of AI.
So it almost seems like, it's like the perfect start. So you had the model, right? The model was created. Now machine learning has come in, and now with the CPU usage and then just the type of training data you need to fine tune the machine learning models these days, I think the toughest part is always the model. And then once you get the model down, the next toughest thing to do is to get the relevant data to come in, right? And so you guys seem to have both. And now with the horsepower that all these machine learning infrastructure provides you, you've got the perfect storm of, hey, we've got a model that we built years ago. We've got the relevant data with a loopback that comes up. And here's machine learning to kind of fine tune and take it to the next level. Have you seen, you've been there for a few years now with this machine learning models coming in. Is it faster, quicker, 10x better in terms of speed, in terms of the level of analysis that it's giving you, the type of result it's giving you? Have you seen any difference on your side?
Yeah, absolutely. We would define ourselves as a tech-enabled mapping engine. We are not fully automated. A part of our service to our customers is to make sure that we have somebody on our team meet with a candidate, not only to make sure like, hey, these are the levels that you've gone through. This is what we've learned about you. So you can take this information and go do something on your own outside of our jobs, right? We want to educate our candidates. But we also, we can use that data to appropriately map them to the right cultures across our companies, right? So previously, all of that was done by a human being, right? They learn, they listen, they take notes, right? Then they place them. Then we'd have to talk to the hiring managers after 30, 60, 90 days, listen, write down that information. Now all of that does not need to be managed by a human being, right? So when I joined in 2023 in October, when I sold my business, we had twice as many employees at Avenica.
So you're at half the capacity of this, like there's half the number of employees that you had at that time.
Correct.
So Gary, help me understand, because it sounds good. Like, hey, we took a mapping, but does that mean everybody has to go through a certain assessment test, certain tests that they have to? Because you really, if you're just working off of someone's resume, that kind of doesn't make sense. There has to be more than that you guys have to have inputs in order to predict anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a mix of data and like behavioral science, right? So what we do is the first level is called HAALO. HAALO, HAALO, is our proprietary assessment to Avenica. That's the first step. That's where we start to understand like the makeup of the individual in the DNA, aka it actually attaches a persona, one of 22, right? You can be an entrepreneur, you can be a maverick, a delegate, but we start to understand a little bit about the DNA of the applicant. Sammy, regardless of what's on their resume, regardless of what classes they took, regardless of what career they want to pursue, we're gathering this information on said candidate, right? And we're educating them throughout the journey, right? So we're clear on the top end of the funnel when they enter our ecosystem that this is going to be a little bit of a different experience. We're not a traditional staffing firm where we're going to like call you, vet you, put your notes in an ATS, and then submit your information to a client, right? That's not our game. We're going to basically put you through these series of levels or these micro experiences, and it's going to show us objectively what you could do, what your potential is, right? Job category and subcategory. Now, it's up to you if you want to pursue that. That's why we have people injected to say like, what'd you learn about yourself? Oh, and by the way, we just happen to have all these jobs that match, right? So the first step is more of a behavioral assessment. The next levels, depending on the customer and the jobs we're filling, are more identifying like, what does it mean to be a hard worker? The companies that hire all have their own opinions of what hardworking is. We're able to match those two opinions, or not opinions, but the actual effort of said candidate with the opinion of the hiring manager and the culture and the people they'd be working with, right? So we will do some assessing of the folks after the HAALO behavioral assessment relative to the client and or job, right? If it's an insurance carrier, we're going to be assessing them differently than an automotive group. But all those candidates still take HAALO to start.
There would be then an assessment even on the client side, the hiring side as well, right? Because you've got to know if a hiring manager just says, hey, I like people who are hardworking. Like, again, it's so broad. It doesn't mean anything. I'm hardworking and at cycling and golf, but I suck at my job. Like that's right. That could be just straight out. It's hard work. So you have to have some criteria that is for the client as well, right? And then it must match. That's the way I see it, that you must be, working towards.
Yep. And then we call that HAALO for hiring. So we have a very similar assessment that is taken by the candidate, is also taken by the hiring manager relative to the job that they're filling in their organization.
God.
Right.
Makes sense.
So, yeah. So it's removing bias, right? It's allowing hiring managers to make better hiring decisions. And then it allows them to understand like what's driving them to hire the right person. And because they will, like when we map the talent to the client portal, we actually provide a data overview of like, this is the candidate's information. This is what we've learned about you as a hiring manager. You guys are like a 77% match. And here's some things that you should look at based on the job that this person will be going into, not necessarily just about the company.
Which skill levels and jobs does this work the best at?
Well, what it's working good at now is we're learning that it's doing really well with jobs that have some sort of customer interface, whether that's remote or in person. So think about like customer service, think about like hospitality, retail, the trades, like where like a technician would be going into a house to fix something, where they have to interact with an individual, with a customer, or potentially diagnose a problem. Like, essentially jobs that are not going to be replaced by AI, honestly.
And where is it? So we've got the skill trades that are doing a lot better in it. Where's the gap today in the industry? Because that's what, right? We're trying to dig up. AI's come in, it's doing certain things. Where's the opportunity now? Where are you seeing the opportunity of where AI could make a difference either in, so us, right? Our stack is all the way from ATS, timekeeping, billing, VMS, right? And then it goes into payroll. It's a full platform. It's a platform as a service, basically, staffing platform as a service. With this stack, we're, of course, plugging in 15 to 20 different models inside that help people do their jobs better, faster, right? Quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the gap at on your side of the world that you're seeing, or in general that you're seeing? Gosh, I wish somebody would be plugging this in.
So, I mean, that's an interesting question. I'm going to respond probably in a non-traditional way, Sammy. I would say, like, we're not having trouble with curiosity in the market about what we're doing. Like, we have way more demand than we want. Not want, but,
Can handle
right now, right? Because we're still building our stack, our native stack. Because right now we're relying on tools off the shelf to white label as us, right? But I'd say the biggest gap, to be honest with you, is kind of the change management on the recipient, on the company side, right? Because they're so wired in hiring off of resumes and, oh, you like the same sport, or, oh, I like that university you went to, or like you live by me, or I know somebody that knows you, right? Like those are usually higher priority inputs in decision making, but it doesn't necessarily contribute to job performance. Right? So
very true. Very true.
So what we're doing is we're trying to educate employers and hiring managers. Like, we get it. This has been going on for a century. But if you're truly looking for the right person that's going to be the highest job performer, you got to think differently. And an interesting study that Scott did when he was at Manpower Manpower spent millions of dollars with Google, Cognizant, and Manpower. And it was a 1.5-year long study. And they've learned that there's zero statistical significance on a resume contributing to job performance. Zero.
Wow. So your recommendation is that anybody building a marketplace, if they've pre-done some sort of vetting or testing, like an Avenica model in it, the likelihood of that matching and the best way is probably the best way versus just dumping certain amount. Now, would it contribute to this, to a better model where we would be like, we're tracking, hey, if you're early, did you respond to a job on time? Are you late all the time? Did you make up, did you have injuries certain days, or every Monday, you're late by 10 minutes, or when the weather changes? So like we are tracking hundreds of attributes of every talent that's in our system. We've got over 400,000 right now in that, right?
Yeah.
Millions and millions of points of data that's in there. That would be a great projection on someone. And that means resume is dead, basically, is what you're stating. To some, it gives you a basic guideline, but the success means nothing in it.
You said it. I would love to just get rid of resumes. And we also call, interviewing theater with our clients. Like, it's theater. People are good interviewers. People are bad interviewers. It doesn't really correlate with performance on the job, right? So, but we understand folks' desire to use those legacy behaviors to hire people because they feel and there's instinct around them being a great performer on the job. But we try to remove all that because it's easy to kind of like prove them wrong, right? Like, even though you have somebody that might have hopped around for a couple of years because everybody hates job hoppers, right? Or maybe that's just a badly written resume. Maybe they're just a bad resume writer and they didn't use some sort of AI tool to create an awesome, shiny, sexy resume. We can predict that they would be a higher performer in the job based on us assessing you, the hiring manager, the culture, and the actual candidate.
Has it been working well on the sales? So I always have the toughest piece as the sales hire, right? Everybody and their mother has the toughest time because it's bullshit, the bullshitter, in sales. And the person you're hiring, it's like, who fights what, right? On the bullshit level, typically with sales. Is there any model that has been built out that you guys have worked on the sales side? Because to me, that would be so crucial and needed, because that's the one piece where you really can't confirm what they did unless you met them on the other side of the equation, right? So the best salespeople are somebody I met. They did a great job and they did certain things and you're like, wow. But even then you can really get a curveball thrown at you because they only made that one call and I was the one, and well, they're supposed to make 50 calls that day or that month, whatever it is, right? So is there something that you built for sales?
It's think about our platform is 70 to 75% of the time there's consistency in the stack, regardless of company or job type. So for this example, in a sales role, right, we would obviously adjust some of the levels and try to really understand the art of the individual where the company can teach the science, right? So like you could teach them what they're going to be selling if they make 50 phone calls. But like, how do you know that they are actually willing and used to and want to make those 50 phone calls? We could pull that information out of an individual through an assessment, and we can actually add that data point into the client portal as one of the many points that the hiring manager can review before making that hire, right? So we're not necessarily saying make 50 phone calls for us and let's see how you do, but we're evaluating some of the behaviors that it takes to make those 50 phone calls, if that makes sense. Now,
yes, it's brutal. Yep.
Right. So, and in full transparency, we're really good at that between like 0 and 5 to 7 years. We call like early careerists, right? And then sometimes, aside from just assessing the hiring manager, we'll ask to assess some of the higher performers and get inside of their DNA and see like what's jazzing them up to come into the office every day and make 50 phone calls. And then we can use that information as another layer of the kind of the data view before we submit these candidates.
That's great, because you take the winners in that company, get their DNA in place, so to speak, and then you know exactly what you're looking for in the attributes of the guys coming in.
Who's your target ISP right now? The ideal customer you go after, the platform serves.
So our ICP is traditionally an organization that has high volume hiring in a multi-incumbent same skill set approach. Because again, remember that data loop part of the conversation, right? So the more performance data we get in a very similar job type, the more we can refine the levels and assessments. And once we know, like, you need to hire 20 of these people a month, once we kind of get some of that performance data and we refine the levels, it's off and running, right? Versus like onesie twosies, right? Like it's going to take longer for the machine to mature because we're going to be waiting on kind of transactional job performance data loops. So that, and then coupled with some of the job categories and verticals that we feel will not be eliminated by AI, right? Like, for example, like call center. Like today, call center would be a great customer for us because it's same skill set, lots of hires. But I feel like that job will be fully automated, right, in the next 5 to 8 years, right? I don't think you need people picking up phone calls, right, on how to, log into my bank account, right? So, whereas like we're focusing our model on more, like I mentioned, Sammy, the trades where there's like customer interface. Now we're doing some really cool things with like an automotive group where we're thinking about like how you diagnose, like how are we able to put somebody in a role that doesn't have the years of experience, but how can we help them succeed at a much earlier stage in their career, right? Maybe it's like we have glasses where this automotive technician is looking under the hood and they're hearing how to diagnose a problem specific to like BMW or Mercedes or Nissan, right? They don't have the years of experience knowing Nissan because they're not a journeyman tech, but they have the attributes and the DNA to be a good journeyman tech, but they just need to learn what's under the hood. So, and also obviously talk to the customer that's coming to pick up their car. So, we're going to be focused on like retail, hospitality. We also find like there's a decentralized, like where there's branches or stores, and it's just not everybody's kind of stuck in corporate HQ. Has been a good find for us. What we don't do is like hardcore IT or software. We're not like a hire, train, deploy model.
Where is the biggest demand coming in job-wise now? Now that AI is there, and the trends are changing, right? With the latest job market report today, it was abysmal, right? 22,000 hires only, which means we're seeing, at least on the blue-collar side, we're seeing a lot less port traffic, which equals and a lot less produce coming in as well, right? All of California has been really, it's been a big hit on California, and we're seeing lower jobs, which means less people in 3PLs, distribution, transportation, all the above. You guys probably have a broader view of, and we see that kind of happening all the way. Most of our clients are in the ports, right? New Jersey, everywhere throughout with this distribution. Where are you seeing the most demand come in right now in jobs so that it kind of poises everybody? You already mentioned AI is affecting, if you've got the trades, you're probably pretty good. I think anybody who's in the trades today can be rest assured AI is not going to affect them. It's probably going to help them. So if I'm an air conditioner mechanic, I go there, AI will probably help me troubleshoot the problem a lot quicker, come up with a solution, then I can deal with it. That's probably where AI is helping me actually do my job better, quicker, faster, getting my schedule done, my billing done, all of that. Now I've become twice as more powerful as a mechanic.
Yep.
Where should people be concentrating on to get better jobs, and vice versa? Like a call center is it's really going to go down because everybody's trying to throw bots in between, and there will be some companies who will trace back on that, track back, and use actual people to now start answering because their customers are pissed off.
Yeah.
So where's the demand at, firstly? Where's the positive side that anybody who's today getting into jobs should be looking at?
Yeah, I think so. What we're seeing is, sorry, this is a 3D printing toy, but what we're seeing is that hybrid, kind of that combination of like a technical or mechanical aptitude, right, and customer facing, right. So like we have a PE firm, it's a client of ours. What they do is they buy and hold pool companies, and so they are hiring technicians from us that have a mechanical aptitude, but that can communicate with the customer. They know empathy, right? They know when customers are trying to game the system, right? These are all things that he or she would have to deal with another human while they're trying to fix a pool in this example, right? So I think, my immediate response to you, Sammy, where we're seeing the demand is individuals that need to have that client-facing, kind of authentic, empathetic approach to a customer that's having a problem or needs something, but also has a mechanical aptitude to fix something. And I also feel like that has also have bridged into this like kind of aging workforce conversation, right? Like just think about the whole trades industry. Like what an emotional roller coaster, right? Like it was great, in my parents' generation, then all of a sudden, like everyone's got to go to college. The trades are dying. And all of a sudden the trades are like back up and gaining steam, right? So like, I feel like that's an industry that we're super excited about, and we're investing a lot in to build proper assessments and cool interactive levels for our candidates to enter that space and kind of remove the bias, right? So like, we have candidates that come to us and they're like, well, the university's telling me I need to get a job in engineering. We're justifying the cost of university over the last 4 years, but then we put them through our micro experiences, and we can tell him or her, be like, we understand what you're being told. And there's probably reason why they're telling you that, to go down that path. But here's 3 things that you could do today. And here's the income potential, which is very similar to what you think you can make on the engineering field. So we are investing in fields that we've been talking about, but we're also educating individuals, candidates, or even people that are pivoting careers, that you have a whole plethora of opportunity out there that you haven't even been thinking about.
So you would put, it's again, going back that, when you, back in the day, you started a car and didn't start, you knew how to troubleshoot it. There were only a few reasons, one of them being you didn't put in gas. So if you had to check the oil, you know how to do it. The last generation, which is in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of people have forgotten that completely, right? That skill set. What I heard last was because of AI, all the data centers now have such high demand, they're taking up electricity, water, all the above, right? They're just sucking up from these communities. And guess what they need? They need AC guys to make sure they are running coolant. The highest demand, they can't find enough of them. They can't find enough guys that can fix the water system in it to make sure that these are running. So AI is creating another field and a trade that otherwise was not as much as demand. Oil and gas, for example. There's guys who work on rigs and AI can't do much about it except help them do their job better, right?
Yeah.
So you've got that. So would you suggest this is something that we should put young kids as their program you guys have set up, where I've got a college-going student right now. I would like him and my kid to basically take a test. Here, go take a test. Do you have it online where they could take that entire assessment and maybe help them, because we as parents are looking at kids very differently. We think they've got all these skills, but in reality, a lot of times kids will hide what their true skill might be, or what they really want to do, because they don't want to displease their parents, right?
Yep.
So is there an assessment test that you guys have that's available to students or anybody aspiring to change a career, do anything that is either gratis or there's a cost to it, so all of us can put our kids through it?
Yeah, there's no cost. We actually do not charge candidates at all, Sammy. So like our goal is to kind of like help them define their raw ability and map it to a career opportunity, even if it's not in their vocabulary today, right? So, but to answer your question, yeah, we do have an assessment that anybody could take at any point. They get a PDF immediately and it's free. There's no charge. Interesting enough, you talked about university. I'm heading out to University of Michigan, Ann Arbor on the 15th to meet with them because we're getting some interest from universities to see how they could inject another service for their alumni that is different, right? So, Loyola in Chicago, U of M in Ann Arbor, they're like, well, we need to continue to upgrade our services for our alumni network. Maybe Avenica can be plugged into how we communicate, our cadence of keeping in contact, increase stickiness of our alumni network. So that's like it's not commercially available on the university side yet, Sammy, but we're having meetings and we're talking about it. And like I said, I'm flying out on the 15th to go there to one of them.
Which will be such a great thing for kids because really half your life is spent discovering what you love and then how to make money at it, right? And those two things most of the time don't connect with each other, so having kids to be able to do that, especially with the advent of AI, so many fields I don't think are just going to disappear. That doesn't exist, that they'll be just the best will stay at what they are, because we are humans and we know how to really at the end problem solve. I mean, we're the best at what we do because we're physical arms and legs as well to do things and pick up the phone and call, right? Everybody has a mechanism. So I would love for you to share that with us as well. If you could email us what that link is so we can use it in the podcast to get there. And where do you see you guys being at? Is this something, are you looking now to insert into ATSs so folks like us can help our clients have another choice to say, if you need a marketplace of this side, use Avenica's tool to bring people in?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question. And we have a roadmap, but I want to comment something real quickly. You mentioned about like passion and, career. It's like, that's something also that we're trying to really educate our candidates on every day is like passion versus talent. Like we understand that you are passionate about certain things and, community engagement and the impacts in the world, but like, you also have to focus, if not prioritize more on like really understanding what your talent is and then surrounding that with where you're passionate versus like prioritizing jobs and companies that you're passionate about without truly understanding your talent and where you can make and create value. What was that question again? Sorry.
The second question was, are you looking to where folks like us who have, right, private marketplaces, we have ATSs, we have all of that such a service gets inserted in there so that then the clients start making sure that the right folks are coming in and that the matching is taking place. Because that's is a specialized field that you guys specialize in. Yeah,
it's great. So it's like, in our product roadmap, we are currently, that's how we make our sausage. That's how we perform for our end client, right? Is our stack that we're building. Once we have that and we're not dependent on things off the shelf, we can then provide that as a product or as a service to other firms like yourself. And you can inject it, and then you can say like, hey, we can properly map candidates that are coming into your database and your end clients, right? So the answer is yes, where we can almost sell that and you can white label it. And it's just basically an assessment and mapping tool within your stack or service line. We do have some staffing firms that are interested, but our product isn't set up to support just yet. So right now we're focused on building it to continue to make our sausage for our clients. And then it will be available for all organizations to just take it off the shelf.
Gary, another point, as you see these agencies, even today, running a very traditional model, I still get shocked and surprised. I just spoke to somebody and they were still running physical applications, sitting there, putting up desks, going through all of that, no system whatsoever. There's a call list, what we used to do back in the 90s. Where are you seeing the trend? Because AI will come in for the staffing agencies. Where do you see the highest value of AI in a staffing agency?
In a traditional staffing agency?
Traditional staffing agency, because we all have to understand, majority of the people in staffing business, 5 to 10 years behind on technology. Okay? And typically, they have the vision to do it, but they've got nobody internally who can take that baton and basically take it forward, or they're so thin on their margins that they just can't fathom that a certain amount of money needs to be spent to move forward, and they could do it with a lesser staff than what they have today. Look at Avenica. If you're half your workforce, what does that saving look like, even though you may invest in technology?
Like if I had to answer, I would say where it can impact the most in a positive fashion is like the data and reporting, honestly. I feel like if traditional staffing firms are super focused on being able to report and build robust like business intelligence, they have to have like a data first approach before they can even recruit, source, place people, because you need that information, like you need that business intelligence via reporting and data mapping and bidirectional data from different systems, right? The transfer and load process to be able to continue to like educate your customer on how good you're doing or how bad you're doing, right? So like, I think a lot of staffing firms are hyper focused on the output, which is like invoicing for a placement, where my advice would be to be hyper focused on building a function or a staffing firm that is like data first. How am I going to access the information, and how is it going to be digestible to whoever I send it to? And then what fields and what automation and what workflows need to be built internally from day one versus like 3 years down the road, we were trying to retro everything and figure out where stuff is from a data and reporting perspective. So, and I think for us, specifically for me directly, Sammy, I use a lot of AI in my reporting capabilities today.
You know, you bring up a very good point, because what's the saying, right? If you can't monitor it, you can't manage it, right? I mean, if you don't have access to that data, you can make those decisions. Typically, you know, at least what we've learned over the years is access to data, which in return gives you the decision-making power, which then in return allows you to make decisions that are more meaningful and relevant to what you're doing. And then hopefully you can understand that and put automations in place to even further fine-tune those processes. And I think part of the challenge we see across the board with the staffing industry is that data is sitting in multiple systems everywhere. And no one has the time, the effort, the skill set, or the investment to now, let me go get data from here, data from there, create some sort of data warehouse, and then do some analytics reporting. So that's one thing I know we, from day one, focused on was a single platform, single access to data, whether that data helps you service your clients better or whether that data helps you with your internal processes as well. But you know, I think one forgets that part, which is like basic 101, that I think it's so important that you brought that up.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, it's a current pain point for us, right? I mean, the pain is getting less and less because I've been hyper focused on fixing it and building infrastructure for scale, but like, it's kind of like the integrity of the data and then where to find it, like you said, and it's in different systems and yeah. And the goal is to create action for the end customer too, right? Like help them understand what we're doing versus just like verbally talking about things. It's like, no, these are the insights, and I need to be able to pull these insights based on how I built this from day one.
So as you look at your journey in Avenica, what are the next steps? What can we look forward to seeing this year or next?
Well, hopefully this generates some curiosity in the market, and we get some questions about what the heck Avenica is really doing behind the scenes, and let's try it out. And but I think we will have our own proprietary platform, our own engine that we built natively. I would say it's probably going to be commercially available. It's in beta right now. I'd say by the middle of Q4.
Got it. So by Q4, so next year, it would be something that you'll start getting into, being the technology play, so to speak, as you're getting away.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Gary, always, I know we're at the hour, but anything that we might have forgotten to ask you or did not, that you'd like to divulge into more so? We're trying to keep this brief, tight, to the point.
No, fellas, this is fun. I love to geek out with you guys. So I think this has been a good way to close out the afternoon of a Friday.
Yep, Friday is our day, man, to do this. So that keeps us going. But I can at least on both our sides, that we only mean well for you. We hope you succeed, light the world on fire, and be the best there is. From us, we're always rooting for you and Avenica, and we as not only individuals but as a company are always there to support in any shape or form. And our goal is that everybody gets to reach out to you if they need to. We'll put this in the show notes. We're going to put it up on LinkedIn, that any curiosity they have. One thing is the recruiting space, just the way TJ and I have been at this light industrial piece 30 years and going. One thing we know is by now we can project what, when, where, how a little bit earlier through our own internal AI in our heads, that where the industry is going, what it is. But it's always curious to see how AI is going to change. We only can predict, but also project that into our client base to tell them, hey, start making changes here because this is what's changing in the market, and data is leading us towards that decision.
Amen. Amen.
So all the best to the fam, to Archer. Thank you so much, Gary. We appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers.